No, I'm not.
Let me tell you, it is probably the world's largest Baptist church and has more than a membership of 5,000 people.
Oh, my goodness.
So you got a lot of people.
Can't get them there all at once.
Well, you got a lot of people very enthusiastic about the church, but maybe there are some questions about the church that we're going to explore this morning and perhaps should be explored.
Such as?
Yeah, you'll talk to the gentleman who's been a member of the church, and I say in the past tense, has been a member some 20 years. He's a local attorney, and he has got some very interesting accusations to make. We'll be talking to him.
Keep me posted.
We will do that. Thank you, Jennie.
Yeah.
It is 15 minutes after 7 o'clock, and this is Warren Freiberg, believe it or not, as we try to recover that voice this morning, which we will do in the next hour or so. A little help, maybe a little prayer. Maybe that's exactly what we need. With me is Voyle. Mr. Glover is author of a book that you are going to find fascinating, and I highly recommend, and perhaps I will tell you as we get along why it is fundamental that you get the book called Fundamental Seduction. And Mr. Glover, first of all, good morning.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your having a voice so you could do a lot of the talking this morning.
Well, we will pray for you.
Okay, well, you are, of course, a local attorney.
Yes, sir.
And we're a member of the First Baptist Church in Hammond for a long period of time, right?
Almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And the church has a meticulous reputation. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very much so. And understand, too, Warren, the church still has a number of works and a number of people in it that are good people that are doing some good things for the community.
Well, let's talk about First Baptist Church for a moment. When I said 5,000 people are members, that's no exaggeration. That's just the number of people. Right?
Actually, it's an understatement. I've seen figures in which Hyles, the pastor of the church, has said that there's membership in excess of 50,000. And one account I read, he said that there was a membership of over 100,000. Now, obviously, all those people don't come to church at the same time. But there is an enormous...
Sundays is a fantastic worship service, and there are buses that go to First Baptist Church.
Yes, there are buses that reach into the Chicago area. I think they go as far as up to the Navy base in Chicago, bring people back.
Why did Jack Hyles decide on Hammond? Is there a particular reason?
Well, his story is that he was led of God up here many years ago, I think back in the 50s. He decided that he would come up here. It really is an interesting story. Personally, I don't buy it, but it is an interesting story. He went from Southern Baptist, built a large church. He left the Southern Baptist, built a large independent Baptist church out in Texas. Then he left that to come back into the American Convention, Baptist Convention, which in terms of theology was very, very much liberal and left of where he was, even left of Southern Baptist. And that was First Baptist Church of Hammond. He did that, I think, in the late 50s.
And from that point on, it grew.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
And it grew for a very good reason, because he was saying a lot of things that people found popular and people agreed with.
That's right. He not only did that, he instituted a number of things that were somewhat revolutionary. The visitation program, the outreach program with the various different people. I, for instance, worked for nearly 20 years in the retarded department of Pathfinders. It's an outreach program for those kids and adults who are mentally retarded. And I was there with my wife, and they have a number of programs like that.
And as a matter of fact, I think it's interesting right there how you became involved.
Well, I read a sermon of his. I was in Phoenix, Arizona, and it so fascinated me, some of the things that he said.
Now imagine this man is in Phoenix, Arizona, and reads only the words of Jack Hyles, and you're so inspired. Well, you did what?
Well, married a little lady named Judy that was attending Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, who was also going to this church, First Baptist. And we got married, and we thought, gee, we'd like to come up here and sit under this man's ministry and hear him and raise our kids under his ministry. And so we did.
Now, the word comes to my mind, that man is a spellbinder. Would you say that's a
very much
exaggeration?
So. Very much so, yes.
And he would speak, obviously, people who did listen.
Absolutely. I had a local attorney judge call me. He read my book, and he said, I've got to go hear this guy. So I went to hear him. And he said, this guy is fascinating. This guy is incredible. He said, I see what you're saying now in your book.
What did Jack Hyles say that is so fascinating that causes so many people to apparently admire him? Is it the Word of God?
No, it's this aura that he projects of authority, this aura of confidence. Everybody likes somebody that comes off confident and sure of themselves, and Jack Hyles probably does it better than anybody else. I know, yes, absolutely. He gets up there, and he is definitely in charge. And people like that. People need that sense of security that somebody's in charge.
Now, somewhere along the way, you had a falling out.
Well, I don't know that I would call it so much a falling out as a
an education,
a realization that all was not right in La La Land, and that my pastor was not all he pretended to be.
And yet this man had men, as you point out in the book, who would really die for him and said they would, right?
Oh, absolutely. He just back in November, he's been trying very hard to keep his people from reading the book or hearing anything about it. In September, or actually late September, October of last year.
And it has caused a sensation, especially in fundamentalist religious circles.
Absolutely, and he's cocooned the people, basically telling them that if they hear a bad report, if they hear your show right now, they are listening to gossip. This he terms as radio gossip, by the way. And that they will die spiritually. To illustrate that, he took a glass of orange juice and poured some poison in it and stirred it up and said, now if I drink this, I'll die. And then he turns to one of the staff members and he says, well, would you want to drink this? Can I offer you this to you, Brother John? And the staff member sitting there didn't respond as he should have, which was, gee, no, not me, I wouldn't drink that. Instead, he says, well, if you want me to drink it, Brother Hyles, I will. And Hyles says, now that's loyalty. That's what we're dealing with here.
So there are a lot of people who have blind devotion.
Absolutely.
Since I started promoting this program about 1 week ago, I've had 2 or 3 people call me and say, I know what you're going to do. It is slander. I don't know why you turned against Pastor Hyles. You said good things about him in the past. And that what I was doing was going to be a character assassination. Now, I read the book, and I think you've documented a lot of things you're going to be talking about here during the next hour. So I don't think we're talking about character assassination, but I would agree with you. There are a lot of people who follow Pastor Hyles religiously, if you'll pardon the expression.
Pun intended, yeah.
We're going to talk about it in just a moment. And once the morning fog burns off, it's going to be mostly sunny and mild. It's 20 minutes after 7. At your Royal Church door, when did you first experience some doubt?
About 1985 was the first time I had heard anything. All through our church experience, we'd been preached to from the pulpit, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, basically cocooning us or insulating us from gossip, which was insulating us from hearing the stories about Jack Hyles and about his son. And a man came to me with a story about Jack Hyles' son that I couldn't
his son is also a minister.
Well, I don't know if he's been defrocked or not, but he, at that time, yes, was an ordained minister in the church, working in the church as a pastor.
In the same church in Northwest Indiana?
Yes, First Baptist Church.
And what did you hear at that time?
Well, I'd heard that he'd had numerous affairs, that he, in fact, had taken a church in Texas, that he had been discovered by the janitor's son had found a briefcase in a Dipsy dumpster in the back of the church. Inside this briefcase was a whole litany of pornographic pictures depicting the son, who was the pastor there, with the various women of the church. And needless to say, what followed was a small storm.
Well, you must have been shocked when you heard this.
Oh, absolutely.
Did you believe it?
No. I discounted it. I said, this can't be happening. This can't be true. I've heard too many sermons about how my pastor raised his son, the hundreds and thousands of hours that he spent with his son, raising him and teaching him and training. And how could God let something like this happen? It just didn't compute. Not at all.
When did it begin to compute?
Well, I began to think, and also helping me was this. My wife at the time was a secretary to the principal of a high school. They run a high school. The church does. And
of course, Hyles-Anderson College, right?
And, oh, yes, college, a grade school. And we began to see things. I began to see through her eyes inconsistencies over there, things that Hyles was saying that just didn't make sense. saying he loved the kids, but would never be over at the high school talking to them. I mean, she told me one time he hadn't been there in over a year, and I said, so that's incredible. You mean he hasn't visited the kids in over a year? She says, no. I mean, little things like never having enough supplies, office supplies, having to take my supplies from my office and bring over to the school. I learned subsequent to the writing of the book that, in fact, some of the times of our greatest needs, we had a $90,000 surplus. But
at the right time, Pastor Hyles was saying, we need money. Huh?
Yeah. He's telling us we're broke, we don't have money. The principal who said he didn't know what was in the account, and he truly didn't, is without supplies.
Well, you paint an amazing picture of financial success with Pastor Hyles and his church. In fact, an astronomical picture, right?
Oh, clearly, this is a...
What kind of money are we talking about?
Well, that's one of the questions. What kind of money are we talking about? Nobody really knows the total income of the church, and that's one of the problems that exists over there, is you don't know how much is coming in, and you don't know how much is going out. I don't know the total income of the church. I know in the book I made some very educated calculations. Yeah, he has a ministry. And this is only the book ministry. This has nothing to do with the tithes and the donations and the gifts. That's right. He took this book ministry and has admitted to these things in various forums, including his church recently. Took this book ministry and placed it under the umbrella of the church, but continued to control the funds. No deacon that I've talked to, former deacon or present deacon, knows the disbursements of that account, of those funds. Now, in looking at Hyles' statement, he made the following statements, published these statements. He said if he kept $1 for every book that he's put out or sold, he would have $12 million. So I assumed that he sold 12 million books. I did a rough estimate.
I have the faithful feel an obligation to buy the books.
Oh, absolutely, sure. Yeah.
I've got a ready-made audience.
Sure. I've had people tell me they've bought every book he's ever published. I didn't. I bought many of them, but not every book. But if you multiply that times just an average retail of $4, which is low, you're talking $48 million. Well, where'd $48 million go?
Now, you are saying he does not have to account for that in any way?
No.
And it's only the publishing arm.
That's only the publishing arm.
And again, it's only an educated guess you're making.
Just educated. I give him the benefit of the doubt, and I said, okay, maybe, let's say he gave half of them away. There's still $12 million unaccounted for.
Well, let me ask you what obviously people are thinking of. What about that? We all have to deal with the Internal Revenue Service. We'll get to that in just a moment. It's 28 minutes after 7. The days are going to be a lot better than I feel. I'll tell you that. This morning we're talking about a high somewhere around 48 degrees. It's going to be beautiful. Once the early morning fog burns out, it's going to be mostly sunny. And currently we're talking about a temperature around 40 in South Suburbia, Northwest Indiana. With me is a gentleman who has done a great deal of research in the church of Reverend Jack Hyles, and is author of the book Fundamental Seduction, the Jack Hyles case, the Voyle Glover. Well, what about the Internal Revenue Service? We're talking about the kind of income we just mentioned, and the book publishing arm alone of perhaps $48 million. Doesn't he have to answer to the IRS?
Well, understand that churches don't really have to report.
No, the church.
That's right.
But not necessarily private business.
That's right. But now, he stood up in a service last year sometime, I forget when, towards the end of the year. And he said...
You still remember at this time?
No, this is on tape and so forth. He said basically this, I took the business, the Hyles publishing business, and he said, I gave it to the church because he didn't, quote, need the money. But he kept control of the funds, of the money. So, in essence, what he said he did was take this for-profit business, put it under the tax-free umbrella of the church, and continued to use it as he always had. Now, he says, of course, in his defense, and in fairness to him, he says that he's given it all away. My question is to who and what documents? And he says in it,
or is that the implication? He's doing it to the needy?
Yeah, well, he's given it to more than that. If you read his depositions, as I have, you find that he's given some of it to his secretary. He's given new cars to her. He's given, I had a lady tell me who worked in the book publishing business for 20 years tell me that he gave enormous amounts to old Texas buddies, paying their car payments and doing things. He is a generous man.
With the money of other people.
That's right.
Well, it's a fascinating book, and I want to get back to it because you have not heard the most interesting areas of that. That is still to be coming up. Voyle Glover is an attorney in Cherville and has written Fundamental Seduction, the real Jack Hyles case. We'll be talking about it this morning. As a matter of fact, what I want you to do is to call a few people who might be members of the church. They probably will want to hear what Attorney Glover has got to say, and maybe they will agree or disagree. It is 7:30. We'll each get that cup of coffee and get back to my throat and try to repair that. We'll have Tony Santucci. We'll have local news down in Atlanta. We'll have the story of the world. 7:30.
Libby Collins Show, and here is Warren.
Well, what is left of him, thank you very much, Tony. It is 25 minutes before 8 o'clock. Voyle Glover is with me. Mr. Glover is an attorney from Cherville and a former member of the First Baptist Church of Hammond, and good reason why he's a former member. He's currently author of Fundamental Seduction, which is the Jack Hyles case story, a book that is a true account of the experiences that Mr. Glover's had within the First Baptist Church of Hammond. And, of course, for people who are members of the church, it obviously would be a sin for them to be listening to this program today, right?
Oh, yes, very much so. They would be on such a guilt trip that I don't know if they could handle it.
Let me get back to finances with him for a moment. We're talking about just the book publishing company and worth some $48 million.
Yes, $48 million. And if I think I misspoke earlier, I said $12 million if he gave half of it away, $24 million, which is unaccounted for, even if he gave half of it away.
Now, the church itself, of course, has no problems whatsoever with the Internal Revenue Service because it is a church.
No, none at all.
But is there any estimate of the kind of money that's going into its coffers?
Well, it's got a multi-million-dollar budget, if you count the schools and the college, the church, and everything. It's a multi-million-dollar operation.
Does Reverend Hyles himself take money out?
For salary, yes.
What kind of minimal salary?
It's about $18,000, $19,000.
So hardly very big salary.
Not significant. Plus he gets a house and a car and things like that.
He can draw for any expenses.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, some of those expenses involve women, I gather what you're saying.
Well, he says in his responses and in other places, including his depositions, that he provides his secretary, one of his secretaries, a new car every 2 years. He alleges that he supplies cars to other people. He does not supply them with the same kind of car. The secretary gets a rather expensive car. He pays for gas, and he gives her other gifts. He has definitely given this woman, this particular secretary, upwards of $100,000 or more. And that's,
you can document that?
Yes.
How long a time?
Well, over probably a 20-year period.
$100,000 more because she's a good secretary.
Well, yeah.
Right.
You can put your own interpretation on it. Yes, this woman was having some marital difficulties at the time. He provided enough money and enough means for her to live independently and separately from her husband, who at the time was a deacon, who, by the way, has also published a book, The Wizard of God. It's by Victor Nischik. And it's a very interesting account also.
And I gather he has a lot of questions about his pastor?
Oh, my, yes, very much so.
So there is an allegation there of adultery, right?
Yes, absolutely.
With more than one woman or with her?
Well, with her. There's always, and I think if you're a pastor, particularly if you're a pastor of a big church like that, you're going to have raised against you some allegations of that sort along the way in your career. I don't know that you could avoid it. And so there have been other accusations, but I don't know of any founded accusations, any substantial.
Now, how did he take the accusations against his son, who supposedly had pornographic pictures taken of the son and various women in his church?
To my knowledge, he has never come out publicly in any forum and said anything in the way of my son has been an adulterer or a whoremonger or anything like that. He has steadfastly, in the early days, refused to even acknowledge the problem. People would come to him. He would privately say, well, I'll take care of this, or I'll do this, or I'll do something. He would just ignore the problem.
Now, did he set up the young man in his own church?
Well, there's some question about that. There's some deacons down in that church in Texas who say that Jack Hyles was very instrumental in getting him into that church. Hyles, of course, has publicly denied that. It seems to me rather ludicrous that his son would go to his former church that he had built up down in Texas, and Jack wouldn't know anything about it or have anything to do with it, especially since they looked up to him as this guru.
Of course, the most serious charge, and this one is that obviously the charge that will never cease being plaguing the young man, and obviously deserves a lot more looking into, and that's the possible homicide involving a 17-month-old baby.
Yes. This is a little boy by the name of Brent Stevens, and Brent was brought up to Illinois by Dave and the mother, and they came up here and lived together for a period of time. There was a charge of child abuse raised against David, and this report that I saw, for example, said that there was, in fact, evidence to believe there was child abuse. And what they found was they took the baby in because his leg was swollen. The hospital examined him and found this child with multiple bone breaks in various stages of healing. Now, this is an otherwise healthy baby. There's no disease, there's no reason for this to explain this. So there was a big fight that went on, and ultimately the mother lost the child or gave the child up to the natural father who was living in Texas. Subsequently to that, the father in Texas, for reasons known only to himself and God, I guess, he claims he was told to bring the child back. Ciolino, the investigator at the time for the Illinois Department of Health and Human Services, tells me that that was not the case, that he brought him up because he could not take care of the two children, two boys, Brent and Andrew. At any rate, the children were dumped on the judicial doorstep of Illinois, and they gave the children back to the mother. And a few short months later, Brent is mysteriously dead. Autopsies were done.
That was a 17-month-old little baby?
17-month-old baby, yes.
And he died in what state?
He died in Illinois.
He died in Illinois, so there'd be rather strict laws up here as opposed to perhaps some other states.
Yes, but from what Ciolino tells me, who was right on top of the investigation, they really blew the autopsy. They flubbed it. In fact, Ciolino, under the guise of getting the baby buried in Texas, had the father, the natural father, request the body be brought back to Texas, and there he arranged, Ciolino arranged for an autopsy by a forensic specialist. Forensic specialists declared that it was very probable that a homicide had occurred.
And that's where it stopped?
Well,
here you've got experts saying a murder may have occurred.
That's right.
You've got the son of a famous minister, he himself a minister, and nothing more is done?
Well, it is strange, and it raises a lot of questions. One of the questions that I have is why they permitted this baby, this baby, this child is a victim of a child abuse, no question about that. Now a victim of death, and they drain his body fluids, embalm him, hold a wake at the request of the mother, and there goes your evidence.
Mm-hmm.
They did not run the kind.
It's gone, right?
Yeah, they didn't run the kind of tests they needed to run for this.
Did anybody ask Reverend Hyles about this?
Not that I know of. I know he was at the police station the night that this all came down. I talked with a lady who he gave a ride home from the police station, and he made a statement to the effect, they're trying to pin this on David or something of this sort. And
but that's his only public comment on the case?
As far as I know, he's not made any public comment on it.
What about the pornographic pictures that were found in the trash can of the son's rear of the church? Has he commented on those?
He's not said a thing. He basically stonewalls everyone on this. I mean, he doesn't talk to the press. He made one appearance that I know publicly, and that was on Current Affair about a year ago, in which he was interviewed, and basically that issue had to do with the charges of adultery. And that's all.
And this is what the secretary we were just talking about?
Yes,
At least he's been loyal with his mistress. You can say that for the man.
He's loyal. He that's one of the things he appreciates most is loyalty.
Of course, he means to his wife, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It is quite a before interesting. We're talking about the Reverend Jack Hyles, and we'll talk. Yes, we'll have you on the telephones here in a moment as well. I'll talk to you, the gentleman who's written a book called Fundamental Seduction, and that is Voyle Glover, a local attorney who says he's had more than enough of the whole story, and we'll talk about it after this. It is 7:45, Warren Freiberg going to call this program. And yes, Warren is better. He had trouble with his throat this morning, but we will make it through, and I think it's a fascinating program. You listen to what Attorney Voyle Glover is saying. He's author of Fundamental Seduction, the Jack Hyles case. I want to go back to the son for a second. Do I understand that the son of the minister also wrote a book called, I love the title. You tell me what the title of the book is.
Purity.
Purity. And what was going on at that time?
Well, at the time, he was writing the book, and he was having affairs up here. He was still pastor up here. He left for Texas, and the book came out shortly after he left for Texas, entitled Purity.
Now, let's talk about the payoffs, because there are obviously very interesting juggling of accounts in this case.
Well, the accounts in the First Baptist Church, these things, you really don't know where the money's going. There's so many accounts. I don't know the exact number, but I know there's probably half a dozen or more, of which only 2 that I can surmise have any accounting at all for them. There's just no way to know. There's a treasurer's report that's issued for the operating account, and the membership gets that. What other accounts are listed is unknown. Certainly not to the membership, not to the deacon board.
Well, back to the Internal Revenue Service question. Is there any knowledge that you have that the Internal Revenue Service has ever looked into Jack Hyles' affairs? You might still be looking?
Well, interestingly enough, about a month or so ago, I had a visit from 2 of the special agents came in, and they talked to me.
From the IRS?
Yes, they talked to me for...
after your book has been published?
Yes, about an hour and a half. I did not contact them. Somebody apparently had contacted them with the book or the information in it. They left, said basically, we're not going to be giving you any update reports or anything of this sort, but they obviously were very interested. Most of the questions they asked me, I didn't have the answers to.
But you can think of the IRS, if you've got a discrepancy of $5 or $10, then how excited they get. You're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars, some of which certainly is questionable, and they're not doing a lot about it.
I'll be honest with you, Warren. I hope that every question that I raised in the book, Hyles can answer. I hope for the good.
You really do?
Yes, for the good of Christianity, for the good of the churches, because I think that the IRS, this would give the IRS enormous leverage and get their noses into some places that I personally don't think they belong.
I think we should establish that. Well, you are still very much, in your mind, a good Christian?
Absolutely. I agree.
And a fundamentalist?
Well, I don't know. I don't like that word, to be honest with you.
Define what kind of a Christian you feel you are.
Well, I'm a Baptist. I go to the Lake Hills Baptist Church. The word fundamental has been rather beleaguered of late. It means anything from the Ayatollah to Baker to Swaggart to Jack Hyles. And as mothers quit naming their babies Demas and Judas for good reason, the connotations of those words, even so, I think the word fundamentalism is falling into...
Because in a very real sense, you are putting Hyles in the same category as Swaggart or Baker or even a Jim Jones.
Oh, very much a Jim Jones, and I know that any listener who is a friend or supporter of Jack Hyles or a member is going to resent that very much. But absolutely, when you get a man who can stand up and offer one of his members some poison and the member will reply as he drink it and is serious, you've got a Jim Jones mentality. You have a cult, sure.
All right, you told me this Voyle Glover, the author of Fundamental Seduction, and we'll tell you about how to get that book, but I have a lot of people who want to talk to you, and I would rather some of them do the talking than myself, so let me get the telephone calls. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning. You say you're an attorney, correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, you don't deal in the tax area, and the reason I say that is because you and Warren both erred when you say this reverend or whatever he is has to file taxes on outside income. That's an area I'm very familiar with, and I'll explain what I mean in a second. But first, I want to say I don't know why anyone would be surprised at your accusations. We have the thieving bingo priest in Jeri. We have homosexual and child molesting priests appearing on TV talk shows every day, like you referred to Jim Baker, Swaggart, and Jones. And insurance companies won't even insure Catholic priests anymore because of all the pedophile charges lodged against them. You have the $500 million, that's with a B, dollar Vatican scandal concerning the murder of the Italian bank president. Your revelations are child's play compared to the rest of the religious con artists. And now as to the tax.
Well, I'm sorry. Excuse me if I'm having a problem. I thought went, but I think no, I don't think they're talking about the same type of thing. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The people who are, and I'll use the word fundamentalists again, do have, to a large extent, a very high standard of morality, and certainly would expect that of their pastors. And I think that the area of seduction and all these things we've been talking about this morning will offend a lot of people, and they don't want to hear them. And I'm not quite sure we're talking about the same thing as in some other Christian religions.
Now, Mr. Freiberg, when I get on and I make accusations such as this man is making, when I've made about that Reverend Paul Hall, who's in prison now, before he went to prison, you said you slandered him, you have no right, you're just making an accusation. This man has no proof.
No, wait. Everything he is saying here, I've carefully read the book and the notes and talked to him and talked to other associates, is documented. Mr. Hyles is not going to be filing any lawsuit, at least I doubt if he's going to have the information that he's got, because he'd have to answer too much in court. Plus, you understand that Voyle has been a member for, 20 years of the church?
Yes.
And you're not gaining anything per se for making these accusations. Okay. If anything, he's been an outcast, I would assume, from a lot of people, your former friends.
Let me explain the tax law to you, Mr.
Can I say one thing before you do that? You made an incorrect statement. You said that Warren and I said that you didn't have to declare tax or declare income from outside income. First of all, I didn't say that.
You said you did have to.
Did have to what?
Declare file taxes on outside income.
Well, of course you do. Any income that you get as an individual, you must file.
All right. Well, listen to this. Maybe you'll learn something, Mr. Attorney. Even if an ordained reverend has no association with any established religion, he can file under Section 501C of the Federal Tax Code as a church. Filing that way, his active outside income will also be exempt from any restrictions under Section 511A and 511B. He can publish newspapers, as does Sun Moon, or own a steel mill, all tax-free. Furthermore, under Section 6033, he is not required to file any information forms or make any disclosures whatsoever.
You're wrong, sir.
When they own those corporations file as corporations, and maybe they can find reasons why they lost money, but Reverend Luke, of course, went to jail for income tax evasion. So those people are filing taxes separately. The money you make as a minister or priest, you don't have to file for. But if you own a separate corporation, those corporations are filing tax forms.
But he does not have to disclose any outside income that he makes from those investments.
If they're private. In other words, I know for a fact up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, for example, the St. Norbertine Fathers own a television station, and they pay taxes on the money that they make from the TV station, although they themselves as priests don't pay taxes.
So That's what I'm saying.
Well, then we're saying the same thing. Let's go on. It's 6 minutes before 8 o'clock. Good morning. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Warren and Mr. Glover.
Yes.
Yes, I have several relatives in Northwest Indiana who've had dealings with Jack Hyles and his organization, and I have 5 questions about Hyles, his church, and his college.
Okay.
And I'll try to get all these in through the news before the news. I'll wait through the news. Okay, the first question. I have an uncle who lives in Pine Island near Hyles-Anderson College. That's a college run by Jack Hyles. My uncle has on occasion taken walks on the Hyles campus around the pond, and he's noted...
It's a beautiful college, by the way.
Yes, it is. He's noted that on his walks on the Hyles campus, that security is very strong, and the guards ask questions about what he's doing there, as if he's somehow there to lead the students into temptation. Now, I've been on many college campuses, and I've never heard of such strict campus security. Is Jack Hyles somehow afraid that outsiders will corrupt his students?
Very much so. He's afraid that somebody will get in. He made a statement recently from the pulpit that there definitely was a no-no list. There was definitely a list of people who could not come on to the campus because, basically because he's afraid of them corrupting the students in terms of telling them the truth and telling them about the book and telling them about himself. And that's what it's all about.
So you mean for the minute you're on that campus, you're watched?
Oh, very much so. You're more than watched. You're asked who you are, what you're doing there, what your business is, and you may be escorted off if your answers are not adequate.
Okay, now my second question out of 5. I have a friend who works at Oak Forest Hospital in Oak Forest, Illinois, and on a regular basis every week green buses from Hyles College come to Oak Forest Hospital carrying students to visit the elderly patients. Now I've read stories about other preachers like Jimmy Swaggart accusing them of trying to get old folks to give them their whole estates when they die, and the preachers manipulate the elderly into willing their entire fortunes to the ministries. Does Hyles College send out students to nursing homes and the like to influence the elderly to make out their wills to Hyles Church and College?
I don't think so, no. I think that they're out there as a ministry. Understand a lot of the kids at that school are very sincere people. They're very good people, and they have a sincere desire to help people. And
now, in all fairness, I don't live that far from Hyles-Anderson College, and so I do see a lot of those kids, and they are the kind of kid you'd be very glad to see, that's my boy. In other words, they will go, when they go around the neighborhood, these are clean-cut young American people. So I do think if they're being taken in, they're being taken in quite sincerely.
Now, okay, here's my third out of 5 questions. One of my relatives, a female, was listening to a late-night radio talk show, probably Eddie Schwartz's, and they were talking to someone from the Hammond Times about Hyles, and a caller called up and mentioned a rumor that one of Jack Hyles' male relatives had made a female pregnant without the benefit of marriage. And according to this rumor, the pregnancy was terminated by an abortion. Now, have you heard this rumor?
Well, I've heard the rumor and many others like it, and, I don't have evidence that I don't know who you're talking about in terms of who was pregnant, so I don't know how to respond to that. I can only say that those kinds of stories are in excess of probably 50 or more. I mean, there are numerous stories like that. That's not uncommon.
Now, I have the fourth out of my 5 questions. I have a relative who owns rental property near the Hyles Church, and he has told me that students of Hyles have come to him to rent an apartment, and they expected a discount because they were doing the work of God. Now, does Hyles try to get donations and discounts from businessmen saying that he's doing the work of God, and businessmen who offend him, does he lead boycotts against them like he did with the Hammond Times?
Well, he can be very vindictive in that way, and he has done that on occasion. When a business or something, I don't know if it would be proper to say offends him, as so much as offends the image that he portrays as one of being this ultra super Christian. If it offends his projected sensibilities, then he may get the people to write letters or boycott them in some way. He certainly boycotted the Hammond Times. The Hammond Times today is a non-entity in terms of a business for most of the First Baptist Church members because of the stories that they wrote about him about a year ago.
Okay, now the same relative that I mentioned in the previous question has personally met Hyles, and I think he once or twice maybe went to a service by Hyles. And this relative says that Hyles is very charming and articulate and charismatic, but he has somehow mesmerized his parishioners into thinking that he's some sort of a god. And it seems they worship him more than they do God. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
Well, if you read my book, you'll find that's the main thrust of the book. That is my charge to him is that he has set himself up as a god.
Sir, could you spell your name and tell us how to get your book? Because I'm very interested in securing a copy.
The book can be ordered through Beverly Publishing, B-R-E-V-I-A. That's box 124 in Cherville, S-C-H-E-R-E-R-V-I-L-L-E, Indiana. Zip code 46375. The book is $16.95 and $3 shipping and handling.
Well, it's a massive book. We're not talking about a pamphlet you can read in one night. It's how many pages?
Over 485 pages.
Yeah, but all of it a document. I was very impressed with the documentation. Ralph, you'll enjoy the book.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We're coming up to 8 o'clock, and my throat is recovering. I feel a little bit better. I'm not quite sure how some of the people who are supporters of Jack Hyles feel this morning, and I'm very happy to entertain your telephone calls as well. If you feel there's another side of the story that perhaps Voyle Glover is not telling, I want to hear from you on the other side of the news. We will continue the Warren Freiberg Libby Collins show on the FM side at 102.3 from WTAS Crete. Tony Santucci Jr. on the AM of WCGO Chicago Heights. But on the FM side, we'll continue talking about the Jack Hyles case, so you can stay with us there. At 8 o'clock, we'll tell you about the news from Atlanta. And, of course, the latest in the Persian Gulf situation. Tony has local news. It is 8 o'clock.
Warren Freiberg, Libby Collins Show.
And you have to admit, a very fascinating program it is this morning, especially if you are one of those thousands of people who go to Jack Hyles First Baptist Church in Hammond. With me this morning is a man who says he is literally blowing the whistle on that. The author of Fundamental Seduction, the Jack Hyles case. Voyle Glover is a sheriff attorney, and some of the things he's been saying in the last hour. I am sure, Voyle, people looking at the radio and saying, are we really talking about a man of God and a man of God's son who's also a minister?
Well, I think we're talking about a man who portrays himself as a man of God.
You don't believe he's at all sincere anymore?
No, I don't think so. I think that he's long past that line. I think at one time he was a very sincere man. I think pride has got a hold of him. I think he's...
was his son ever sincere, in your opinion?
I don't think so. I really don't.
We've just been talking about the case after case, apparently, of the boy, especially having carnal knowledge of women within the church.
Yes, and at a very early age, very early. I had a security guard tell me that he used to see young girls coming out of the office at the what they call Baptist City, where the son had an office. 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, buttoning their blouses and coming down their clothes in disarray, lipstick smeared and so forth. And this is many years ago.
So this has just not started in the recent past?
No.
We'll get back to you, and a lot of people want to talk to you right after Jennifer Hammond has the traffic situation for 12 minutes after 8 o'clock. And Jen, what about that traffic? As clear as my voice, right, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll talk to you tomorrow. 15 minutes after 8 o'clock. Well, let me go back to some of these allegations, and we'll get to your telephone calls here. I understand that a daughter revealed in your book that she heard her mother, who's a secretary for Jack Hyles, whisper softly on the telephone to him on a regular basis over the years that he loved her mother.
Yes, Judy Nischik, now Judy Johnson. Judy used to hear her mother on the phone with Jack Hyles.
It's not impressed me tremendously. My sister was a member of Hyles' church for 12 years, and I've attended a number of times. He's not my cup of tea. I can say that. My husband has a reference to the people from his church, and he calls them the gravy, sap, and biscuit-eating Baptists. And what he means is they're more of the southern hellfire and brimstone type. We happen to be Baptist ourselves, but we don't necessarily go in for all of the emotion that goes into Jack Hyles' sermons, although his people seem to love it. They just eat it up, and he is quite an entertainer. I must say that while I wasn't impressed in one regard, in just observing him, I was tremendously impressed at his ability to get his thoughts across and to speak to these people and to make them believe what he had to say. He's quite impressive that way. In fact, I will tell you that my family, many times, they used to sell bonds at the church, or else you'd loan them money and they'd pay interest. It was like a bank kind of a thing. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I remember that.
Well, yeah, they did that about maybe 15 years ago, and my stepfather and quite a few family members did purchase or loan money to that church, and when the bonds were due or whatever, that they just let them keep the money, which was fine. I don't have any problem with that. There was no problem. But I'll tell you something a little bit anecdotal. If you, we went one evening, and my one brother-in-law came with us, he and his wife. And I have never seen any church take more, at least in their evening service, take more collections. And one is for the poor, one is the Deacon's Fund, one is, he has so many collections. Well, about the third collection, my one brother-in-law who was with us reached down into his pockets, pulled the lining of his pockets out and let him,
Nothing more.
It was totally empty. And he sat there with his hands folded as they passed the plates around. We said,
of course, in view of what Voyle has been saying, it's kind of interesting if none of this money is accounted for.
Well, see, that's a problem that I have found, and my sister is very typically like the followers of Pastor Hyles' church, that you don't need an explanation. She always says, well, that's up to God. If, God will deal with him if he's misusing the money. And her attitude is beautiful about that, but I'm a little more practical, and I like a little more explanation because I don't like to waste money. And I know that we've had a few disputes as to how he spent money. It wasn't my church, so I had nothing to say about it, but I can remember her saying, well, for the choir or the chorus or whatever, the choir, he went out and had them buy dresses that were just so outrageously expensive. I can't remember what the cost was, and I said, my goodness, couldn't he be using that money for, something, especially since these people worked so hard to give the money? And she says, no, he wants the best. He wants the best, and that's the way he's going to do it. But I noticed one other thing that he did this is the one thing that I objected to. And that was in evening sermons. I don't know if he always does this, but the times that I attended, he would end the sermon, and that's, and it was fine and dandy. I can't say I didn't enjoy him, but he would get into a question and answer session. And does he still do that?
Well, that comes at the beginning of the service. Usually the question and answer is at 6 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, well, maybe it was at the beginning, and I have it incorrect.
Yeah, he still does that.
Oh, okay. Well, I was not impressed with that because he would go stray from the spiritual to the political, and he would answer questions about everything and anything, and these people would buy into anything he said, whether it was about the President of the United States. And frankly, if I were to liken Jack Hyles to anyone, it would be to George Bush. He's able to sell them. He's able to sell them on anything, just the way that George Bush has sold people in this country on this phony war.
You mentioned that you're not impressed with some things that you've heard so far. Since they obviously were things of a scandalous nature, well, why were you not impressed?
Well, I think that there need be more than, we heard rumors about girls coming down with unbuttoned blouses and that type of thing. I think that a lot of these things that he's talking about are quite arbitrary.
No, that's not true. You'd have to read the book. I can't, in a brief moment on a show, put to you what took me over 8 months to put together in a book. There's just too much. There's documentation there. There's no question.
Sure. Oh, well, there may be, and I just said what I heard thus far because I didn't hear documentation. However, I'm not saying that you're not telling the truth, sir, because you may well be. I'm just saying that I'm not judging it. I'm just telling you about my experiences with Jack Hyles, and that right from the get-go, I was not impressed with him.
Yeah,
I can't imagine anyone saying, I mean, here you are, an attorney, a person of truth. You're not taken by emotion, I would imagine. I can't imagine you being in that church for 20 years and not understanding that this man is appealing to people's emotions, because I caught it the first time I attended, and yet I liked him.
Well, that's a good point, though. Do you think you were gullible too long?
Well, I came into the church back in '68, a young man with my young wife, very much gullible, very much taken with this man, and it's a process. We were, for nearly 20 years, imprinted, psychologically imprinted. We were led to believe that this is the greatest man of God that ever walked the face of the earth.
Tell me about it. My sister used to give me this all the time.
The best example of how we were, I listened recently to a sermon preached by a former Bible teacher out at Hyles-Anderson. The whole sermon was nothing but a build-up of Jack Hyles and how we ought to appreciate him. And let me read one little quote from that sermon. I mean, this is incredible, but this illustrates exactly how we were. It says, I've prayed before, and this is a direct quote, I don't know why I'm admitting this, but I've bowed my head and prayed, Dear Brother Hyles. I got him confused with God. Now, I don't know that I never got that far, okay, but believe me, we were very much taken with this man.
one of the things that I've objected to with him is that I do feel that he's quite chauvinistic. And, many times he talks about how the men ought to do this and the women ought to, shut up. And I never appreciated that because it's wrong. It's not biblical to talk that way. And I felt that he did have this feeling that he was more powerful than anybody else, and yet today I would not tell you that I think he's a bad man. I think he's the type of man that certain people seem to need. My sister was one of them.
Well, that's a good point. Let me ask Voyle about that, and also your own personal opinion as to whether, and let's get right down to the nitty-gritty, whether he's a bad man. It is 8:25 in the morning. Once the morning fog brings off, it's going to be mostly sunny and mild and a very nice day with a high summer around 48 degrees.
Hi, this is Colleen Wright of J.
There are some people who probably need Jack Hyles.
I don't
the kind of personality that he is.
Yeah, I don't think they need a Jack Hyles. They certainly need a leader, a strong leader, and I think they need somebody to teach them about God. I think that a lot of the things that Hyles has stood for over the years are valid and are good. I disagree that they need a Jack Hyles. They don't need what he stands for anymore. You don't need a man
with his charisma.
Charisma? I don't know about that. I'm very much dissuaded from the notion of a charismatic person. We tend to focus too tightly on somebody who's charismatic, and we get taken up with this person, and that's part of the problem I see today, not just with Baptists. I see it with the Pentecostals and everyone. We've got superstars in the pulpit, and I think we ought to have men who are standing up and talking about God, not themselves.
What about the ultimate question? In your opinion, after all this research, the book that you're writing, is Jack Hyles a bad man?
I think the best way to answer that is to put it back to your listeners and ask this question. Is a man who uses church funds to pay his son's child support bad? Is a man who uses a business that he owns, takes church money for personal reasons? Is he a bad man? Is he a bad man if he takes over $100,000 and helps support a woman, not his wife, who's having marital problems? Is that a bad man? Is it a bad man who doesn't give an accounting to the church membership and the deacons for the various funds that are in his church? Is it a bad man who boasts that he has staff members who would commit suicide for him? Is he a bad man who would do nothing about his son's adulterous affairs and send him down to another church to destroy that church? I think the question is...
You're going to say enough to answer their own question. Let's go back to calls. It's 8:28. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Hello, John.
Mr. What is your name, sir?
Voyle over.
Sir, I'm not a big fan of Mr. Heilman's either, but I know that you have admitted that you were under his influence at an early stage in your life, an earlier stage, and I just find it a little puzzling why you should be taking out after him, writing a book, things like that.
I just gave you the reason, sir.
But you haven't discussed your personal relationship with him. I don't think enough. I'm just a little puzzled. How close were you with him, sir?
Well, when you say close, there's never... Let me just put it to you this way.
Go ahead.
When I left, which was about the end of '87, I wrote him a very nice letter, a very kind letter. I remembered only the good things, only the things that I learned from him, and I learned very many things from him. I did not bring up the negative at all.
So your relationship, please, with him? I mean, how close were you?
Close. Do you mean... I mean, I was
I
was a church member, sir.
You remind me of somebody who has been scorned in some way.
No.
And I'm just trying to place this in the context of reality.
Well,
you're giving a one-sided...
Look at it like this. You're in a church with, 15, 20,000 people coming in any given day. How close can you be to a pastor in terms of, if you're asking me, did I see him every Sunday privately? No.
Or your personal friend?
I want to know about your dealings with him, sir.
No, he had very few what I would call personal friends. Vic,
why aren't you willing to answer a direct question, sir?
Well, I think he is answering your question.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Answer it, please.
You're not.
But do you want to hold on, Todd?
Certainly.
All right, hold on. It is 8:30. Warren Freiberg, WTAS. We'll be back after the news. And we're talking about the man who apparently is, in some cases, even worshipped by his parishioners, Reverend Jack Hyles of the First Baptist Church of Hammond. With me is Voyle, an attorney who's written a book that he claims exposes a lot about what Jack Hyles is really doing. And Todd, let's go back here. I think, I think you can safely say the man's relationship is that of parishioner.
That's what I'm questioning. Maybe you can safely say this, sir, but I have found in my experience that people who tell tales, kiss and tell sort of thing, that type of thing, they have an axe to grind. And I'm just, let's just say I'm taking the role of a Mike Wallace.
All right, well, that's fair enough.
What is your personal relationship with him, sir? What is your personal relationship? Okay. I want to know.
All right. My axe to grind is I have a message, and the message is to Christians, and it's to people like yourself. This is not representative of Christianity. This is not what it's all about. There's something better. There's something different. The shuck and jive artist, which I believe Jack Hyles is, does not represent me, does not represent Christianity.
Well, all right. I'll just go on then. Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, then let's go on to you. Good morning. You're on here.
Good morning, Warren.
Yes, ma'am.
And good morning, Mr. Glover.
Good morning.
My son was a former student of Hyles-Anderson College, and his fiancée and him were both asked to leave when they wouldn't pledge 100% undying devotion and allegiance to Dr. Hyles.
Well, that's so common. I've had so many people tell me the same thing. The loyalty demanded by Jack Hyles and by members over there is absolute. It's 100%. If you don't...
What do you mean by loyalty? I think the other people may have a little trouble trying to discern what that is. What do you mean loyalty?
You have to say basically that you are 100% for Jack Hyles, which means, interpreted, means this. Means that you don't believe that he's committed any kind of immoral act. Means that you believe what he says when he says it. You don't question him. You are loyal unquestioningly to this man, totally. And if you can't do that, if you can't make that statement or that stand, then you come under question and suspicion.
All right, caller, then what about your youngsters?
Well, my son lived off campus. He did not attend Hyles-Anderson College because he was already churched in a church that was affiliated with Hyles-Anderson College, First Baptist. His fiancée did live on campus, and she was called down to the office. My son was too. He told them the only one he would give 100% allegiance to is the Lord Jesus Christ. He was told thus then that he would have to leave the college, and his fiancée was very rudely told that she would have to transfer her college credit someplace else. He still had an opening to come back, but he desired not to. There was two circumstances that really broke our heart and really made him make the final decision, but he did have to leave.
And those were?
Well, the first one, they have skits at their chapel time. They have a chapel time every morning. And one of the skits that they had portrayed Jack Hyles, where he was actually involved in the skit himself, as a mafia don. And all of his officers in the college portrayed his so-called hitmen, and they went around kissing his ring as if he was like a god.
And this was supposed to be humorous.
Yes, but, you know, when you're sincerely devoted to serving the Lord, it's not humorous.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not blind...
I'm surprised, though, that he would put himself in that kind of a position.
Well, this is my son's own...
Yeah, I'm sure it's true.
He was there, and he watched it go on. And
they've had similar skits over the years. When the controversy first broke out, I heard of a skit over there in which one of the former faculty, Mr. George Godfrey, who's an evangelist now who broke from Hyles, George Godfrey was portrayed as one of the enemies and was actually in the skit shot, killed.
I did hear about that one, but that Dr. Godfrey is involved in the next thing that made my son decide to leave. Dr. Hyles got behind the pulpit at one of the chapel meetings, and he told the students that they knew who their enemies were, and Dr. Godfrey, and he read out a list of the enemies. I can't remember the gentleman's name that wrote the newspaper article, but he was on the list.
Sumner?
Yes, Pastor Sumner. And he told them that they were allowed to do anything within murdering him, without
Except for
yes, to them because they were the enemy, and that's what really broke the straw in my son's career there. So after he left the college, we were harassed by phone by one of the the attendance president of the college. We were harassed several times, telling us, even to a point that our son was going to go to hell because he left the college. Of course, being fundamental Baptist for 20 years, we knew that had nothing to do with his salvation. So
I had a lady write me recently telling she was a staff member at the church, not the college, for many years, well over 20 years. And they finally left because of all the problems and the things that they saw, her and her husband. She wrote in a letter and told me that Hyles tried to keep them from leaving and actually told her that if she left, don't be surprised if God kills, and he gave the name of her baby daughter.
Oh, my.
And she said, for years after that, she said, I would wake up in the middle of the night and go and put my finger under the baby's nose to see if she was still breathing.
Bless her heart. I wanted to ask you, Mr. Glover, when do you think that the college took on its cult-like?
It's a good question.
I think it took it on many, many years ago himself, and it's just degenerated from that point.
Well, because we're Christians, we don't feel like we could hold any malice in our hearts towards them. But we've lost a great deal of respect for him as a leader for Christ.
Which is one of the reasons why we, as Christians, I think, have a duty to stand up and clean our own house and say to other people, this is not what Christianity is all about. And that's what the book's all about.
All right, thank you very much. Carl, you want to get the one line is open? Yeah, thank you. Let me get 32 degrees right now. Sunny later on today. Well, I gather that a lot of people are afraid of harassment if they turn against Jack Hyles.
Oh, yeah, very much so. George Godfrey, who was for years, I think 16 years, on the staff at the college, when he left, he wrote a little a letter, an open letter to Hyles, why I left Jack Hyles after 16 years. He had his house broken into. He had somebody burning gasoline on his front lawn. The number's 666. Threatening phone calls, threatening to kill him. Any number of harassments, even as late as 2.5, 3 months ago.
But he didn't write a 300-page nationally syndicated book.
No, he didn't.
Are you afraid of anything happening to you or your family?
No, I'm not really. I gave this thing to the Lord. I said, Lord, you have to protect, you have to take care of me, and whatever comes, I can deal with it, I think.
It is 8:45. You're on the air with Lyle Glover. Good morning.
Hello, Warren.
Yes, ma'am.
Shirley.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how you doing?
Well, I could be better, but go ahead.
Huh?
I could be better.
I know. Why don't you take some lemon, honey, and tea?
I'm going to go home and go to bed.
You should. Listen, does that Hyle, or whatever the name that he's speaking there,
Jack Hyles.
Yeah, does he dictate to the little suburbs like this? Because the people next door to me, they used to go to the one on 149th or something like that, and Kedzie, and it used to be like a big barn. And now, does he control that?
Not to my knowledge. He brings buses over to the suburbs all over. And
big buses, yeah. He brings big buses.
Yeah, they bus a lot of people into Hammond. The church is located.
Do you know that my son and I went one time to a Baptist thing, and they were so hyper in there. Those kids were jumping around like jumping beans. They were crazy. They were crazy people.
They can be a little energetic at times, I'm sure.
What do you mean energetic? They were hyper.
Hyper, okay.
Yeah, and I didn't like that. And I was a Jehovah's Witness already, and I told Warren that already. And when I left them, it almost broke up my marriage. But when I left them, they said that I was trying to apostatize. What does that mean? I'm trying to make my own religion?
Proselytize?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were trying to recruit.
And that's the furthest from my mind. I was never trying to do that,
Are you shocked by any things you've heard about the The affairs with women?
Huh?
I say you're shocked about any of the things you've heard so far about the affairs involving women.
Yes, I did. They were trying to tell me that I was downtrodden and I was bad and I was no good and everything, you know. And the two Baptists next door to me. Listen to this now. I had two Baptists next door to me, and she left him because he kicked her out of the house. And then the two girls had a baby at 15 and 16.
That's why it's so important, I think, that Christians point to this man and say this is not what Christianity is all about, because, frankly, he's given Christianity a black eye. He's given them a bad name, and we need to denounce that and say that's wrong, because there's too many people out there who then throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay, Sherry, thank you. Let me go to you 13 before 9 o'clock.
Hey, Warren.
Yes, ma'am.
Warren, I don't want to talk about the Baptists, but I do want to make some comments about another religion, Church of God. And I've talked to you before. My daughter was killed by her husband, who was a member of Church of God.
Yes, I recall you're calling.
Right, it was in the paper, and this is what it seemed. My daughter got swept in by this religion at the age of 17, and the parents came and took her out of my home. For over a year, I had no contact with her.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, she began to see something was wrong. We're all of Catholic faith. There's never been and everyone can use their own religion, but I think when a head of a church is so controlling to where they dictate what they can and cannot do, it's a bad situation, because they make their own rules for what they do. And this member of this family, my daughter lived in this house for 7 months, and the pastor, we brought it to the attention of the pastor. He was a very hyper, he just was very overpowering, and the religion itself is, I've gone to the church because I didn't know much about it at the time, and I thought my daughter had gotten into a cult, but it's not a cult. They speak.
Well, of course, that becomes a matter of opinion as to whether some of these things are really cults.
Yes, and they fall over, and you have to do what they say. I have a teenager who's handicapped, and when I took her with me, I wanted to see what the church was all about. The first thing they said to me, do I want to see her healed? And I said, well, my God is taking care of her. And they told me I was preventing her from being healed by my attitude. But
well, as soon as I
know what he's talking about.
Yeah, as soon as I get a voice back here in a couple of days, I'd like you to give me a call off the air. And I do want to talk to you about your daughter and perhaps doing a little more on that whole project, okay?
Oh, that would be great, Warren.
Okay, thank you. Let me go back for a second, Voyle, to what we were talking about in terms of cults. Do you believe Jack Hyles is forming a cult? Is it a cult now?
Well,
especially when we go to how do you define cult?
Yeah, the term, in my opinion, the term Christian cult is a contradiction of terms. I prefer to look at it more in terms of that he is fostering a cultic mindset. And the bottom line, it comes out the same any way you want to define it. When you have somebody who is standing up and they are portraying themselves as the epitome of truth and the only holder of truth, and you come to get truth from me, and he controls these people's minds as to what goes in and what they do with their lives and who they marry and so forth. And to the degree that he has demonstrated to where somebody will actually agree to drink a glass of poisoned orange juice, yeah, that's very cultic.
Your opinion is 10 before 9.
Dr. Michael McNally.
Well, you have an interesting quote from Jack Hyles. I want you to pass along if you read that.
The date here is 11/28/90. He preached a sermon. He made an incredible statement. This illustrates maybe more than anything the extreme egotism of the man. He said, I know what I'm talking about. Folks, I've been pastoring for over 43 years. I've pastored more people than any man. Hear me now. In the history of the United States of America, and I've probably pastored more people than any man who's ever lived since Jesus started the church in Jerusalem. I know I've counseled with more people than any preacher's ever counseled with. I know what destroys people.
Interesting direct quote.
Yeah.
A very big ego.
Very much so.
Was that apparent to you when you were a fervent follower of the man?
No, it was not. We had been conditioned to believe this man was the greatest man, but not only the greatest man, but the most humble man we ever heard. We didn't blink. I'm critical of myself. I blame myself. I have no excuse. I can't sit here and justify it. I really can't.
Could you consider yourself ever, though, as a follower of somebody like a Jim Jones? In other words, what is it that attracts people to this man and attracted, of course, people to Jim Jones? What is the common denominator?
The authoritarian, the leadership, the commanding figure, the man who has all the answers. He was our Roy Rogers. He was our hero. He was our Superman. And we wanted somebody who could stand up against the wickedness of the world and fearless warrior, Christian, mighty Christian, a great man of God. And we found him in him.
A man who has feet of clay.
Man who has more than feet of clay.
Okay, let's come back to you. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Like I said, I enjoy your show. I'm calling from Indiana.
Thank you.
I am a graduate of Hammond Baptist High School, a graduate of Hyles-Anderson College. I worked at the teen department, Sunday School B, with Dave Hyles. And I'd like to bring up another point that going through their school system and going to Hyles-Anderson, it has totally left you with a degree that is totally useless. It is a degree that is totally unaccredited, but yet we were told at that time that if the world is accredited, and if you go to the secular schools, it's double state or Satan U. And so I attended Hyles-Anderson. You know, of course, I talked to Brother Hyles, and he told me to go there. And right now, it is totally useless. Not just for myself, but for hundreds of other people.
So you graduated, you have the degree, and you're saying you can't do anything with it?
Yes, sir. It is totally unaccredited.
In light of the scandal, I would imagine that you really don't want to boast about the fact that you graduated from there, do you?
No, sir. People ask me what degree I have. I say I went to Anderson College in Anderson, Indiana. But I recently spoke with the Dean of Education at Purdue University, trying to, get into public schools to teach. I have a teaching degree. And was told that I'd have to start over with 18-year-olds. Totally worthless. And, of course...
How much money do you estimate that you put into that?
It was approximately about $50 a credit hour when I attended school there 10 years ago. But it is totally useless. And not just myself...
You heard Mr. Glover say this morning. Do you believe in what he's been saying?
Yes, sir, I do. I worked with Dave Hyles for 3 years as a Sunday school teacher, and I believe every word of it. Yes, sir.
Have you read the book?
Yes, sir, I have.
Do you recommend it to other people?
Yes, sir, I do. I recommend to everyone. And there are a lot of good people there, but they are sincerely wrong as far as believing this man. They do worship him.
Okay, where did you wake up? Only one that agreed apparently was worthless?
I taught in Christian schools, and there, I had some good years teaching. I taught from 1978 to 1983 in 3 Christian schools, and I guess about 1983 I realized that you're going nowhere fast. It was a great job. I did enjoy teaching, but financially you were in the poorhouse. And
what opened your eyes to Jack Hyles?
Well, we all knew about David. I went to high school with him and college. And
you knew what? That he was a womanizer?
Yeah. Well, we had heard that, and I had, of course, worked with him. He always brag about all his girlfriends writing him from all over the country and everything, even when he was single. And
he would brag that to you?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, what do you think, that you as a sincere person might be offended?
No, he was kind of proud of it. He was very proud of his accomplishments. And I remember going to the Bill Wright's Ranch. He was my youth pastor, by the way. And
something we were talking about off the air that it didn't occur to me until as Colonel Journal. The girls that would be seduced by David were good Christian girls. We're not talking about...
we're talking about good kids.
We're talking about very young ladies who are prim, proper, and good Christians.
Who are very much in love with the notion that this is, to coin a phrase, pun intended, God's son. This is the son of the great Jack Hyles. And
the girls really felt that. They were having a relationship with the Son of God.
Doing God a favor.
Yes, when he would preach in the Sunday school, and of course this was right before his book Purity with the white cover was published, he would point his finger at the teenagers and the several hundred teenagers and say, I've never had an unpure thought about any woman in this world. Never have an unpure thought. And he said that several times. And he was braggingly. And of course we kind of chuckled, because it wasn't true. Dr. Hyles has a policy. He would brag about David that he had never been alone with a girl before he was married, and this was a joke too. He was double dating. He always encouraged double dating. That was not true.
All right. Considering how you feel now, do you think that there should be anything done to this man? Should he be investigated? Should the Internal Revenue Service do it, or should everybody look away?
Well, I'll tell you, he has no business, none, preaching the gospel, none. And it has affected me every day. You know, I'm fortunate I got another career started. I'm 35 years old, but he has no business preaching the gospel. If he wants to have his flings, and I'm sure he's got plenty of money put away that he can have his fling somewhere. He has no business preaching the gospel.
Okay, sir. Interesting, Tony. 2 minutes before 9 o'clock. Now, Voyle Glover is author of the book Fundamental Seduction. Will stay beyond 9 o'clock, so if you have a couple of questions for him, some comments, if you are perhaps a member of the church, if you want a challenge, want to hear the other side as well, we will continue the conversation past 9 o'clock, so you can call during that time and be on the air at 754-4335 or 756-7896. Voyle, let's tell them how they can get the book again if you can.
Okay, there's a couple of ways. If you want to use the Visa Master card, 800-753-2665. That's 800.
Let me give it to them again.
800-753-2665. Or you can. There's 3 bookstores in the area that do carry it. The Christian Book Center in Glen Park, Miles Bookstore in Highland, and Stuart Brent in downtown Chicago.
I imagine you had a little difficulty in getting it into a Christian bookstore.
Oh, yeah, they were very reluctant, most of them, to carry it, particularly in this area. In fact, they didn't want to.
Okay, give me the 800 number again.
All right, that's 800-753-2665.
And the charge?
$16.95 and $3 shipping and handling, $19.95.
Okay, I'll be right back to you on the phone. Warren Freiberg from WTO Street at 9 o'clock. Talking about Jack Hyles, the man who has another Jimmy Swagger, Jim Baker. Or is a man of God. A lot of people, obviously thousands of people in this area, follow this man. Now he is the subject of a fascinating book called Fundamental Seduction, which is written by Voyle Glover, who was with me this morning. The Jack Hyles case. If people are going to say to you, I'm sure we'll still get that here in the next half hour or so, if people are going to say to you, but this man has been good for me. He's been an example. My family prays to God and stays together because of the sermons, not because of the things you're alleging he does, but because of the sermons. What do you say to them?
Well, part of the insidiousness of this man is the fact that he uses truth so well. Truth is the hook. Truth is what he captures you with. Just as Hitler
there are many
did.
things that he says that I really agree with.
Oh, I do too. I learned many things from him. Hitler came in the same way. Hitler used to stand up and say things to the people that were very true. They were being raped by the Allies. The reparations were destroying them. And Hitler made these promises to deliver them, and he said a lot of things that were true. But he was all the while beguiling the people. And I don't think you can say because somebody says truth or because somebody does something good that you can overlook the horror and the evil that they do.
And you're saying that's what the followers currently are doing?
Oh, absolutely. Well, many of them are overlooking it. Some of them are just ignorant. They've closed their ears and their minds.
And some probably don't want to know.
Don't want to know, absolutely. Destroy their God.
By the way, the very interesting, what is I have in front of me from the Cherryville Police Department?
Well, this is a little incident that occurred back in 1990 in about March the 27th. There had been, for many, many years, rumored that this one young lady and David Hyles were having an affair, and
was the son of Jack Hyles.
Yes, there was no more than allegations to it. It was denied, of course. And then one night in 91 or 90, in about March in the evening, the police department were dispatched into Cherryville on Kennedy. That's an area in which they've had drug problems in the past, and so they had suspicious activity, which they deemed suspicious activity. They went and investigated, and lo and behold, in the parked cars, this married lady, married to a deacon of the church, in fact, sitting alone in the car with David Hyles together. Now, alone, that might not be much, but when you consider both of them are married to other people, you consider the alleged affairs that was said to have occurred between the two, and the fact that one of the allegations is that she had a child by him. Needless to say, it caused quite a scandal.
Sure. Interesting document from the Cherryville Police Department. 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, let's go back to telephone calls. You're on the air with Voyle. Good morning.
Good morning, Warren. As a business person in Indiana coming from business in Chicago, I have dealt for many, many years with the Hammond Baptist members of the Hammond Baptist Church. And coming from Chicago, when I first started dealing with them in my business, my first impression was, who are these weird people? They were so very, very different than ordinary people.
In what way?
In the manner that they were very close knit with this leader of this church, and they spoke about it freely. And the modesty factor was overwhelming because as I dealt with them through the years, I realized that they are wonderful people, but that most of the parents, and perhaps your guests would agree with this, most of the parents were actually in this church to keep their children from the outside world.
That's very valid observation, yes.
Yes, the sins of the outside.
Let me also say one thing according to Voyle, maybe probably not substantiate that. I have never seen a group of people more honest than members of the First Baptist Church.
Wonderful people.
Yeah, this lady's saying, doing this in business, or I once had an employee who was a member of the church, as honest as the day is long.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Understand that one of the things that's stressed at the church is character. Hyles preaches character. Hyles preaches many good things, and these are Christian traits, Christian characteristics. We're to love one another, and many of the Christians in that church are what I call good Christians. I really think I think they're deceived. I think they're blind.
Yes,
but I think they're good people. I don't.
Very definitely, and I feel that they are blinded to what is going on. And I was very, very suspicious of him right from the start. I thought, who could possibly put such a tremendous hold on an individual? And then when I realized, and people are still telling me earlier in your show, the people come from Michigan, from Wisconsin in buses to a service on Sunday. I mean, 5.5, 6-hour drive is nothing for these people.
There were many people who helped Castro free Cuba, and they were very sincere, very good people, and they were freeing them. They were freeing Cuba from Batista, who was a ruthless dictator.
Yes,
they did not realize, though, they were working for someone who was going to bring them something worse.
And you know what is so unfortunate also is that the families are substantially well off, or they would be well off. When they come into the store, they're always looking for bargains because they're limited to what they can buy because most of their monies go to this church. I mean, they don't live.
Is that true that a large part of the income of the family of a church like that will go directly to it?
Yes.
Well, you're told to tithe, which is 10% of your income, and then there are a lot of special offerings. And
yes, that's what I heard.
You're really pressed to give beyond measure. And I'll be honest with you. Let me tell you this. I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with supporting the church. I don't see anything wrong with supporting the various programs of the church. I do see it as a wrong when there's no accountability.
Exactly.
I do see it as a wrong when you give to the deprivation of your family's real needs.
Exactly.
I think you should forego some comforts now and then for the church and for other people.
But I think as family people, you should award yourself some comforts also, and not be put on a guilt trip that you should not have this per se because you should donate it to the church and they can do with it what they will because the good Lord has said that you must do this.
Hyles used to boast and boast. He used to put us on a guilt trip basically by saying this.
Yes.
Don't save up for a rainy day. It's raining right now. Interestingly, in his deposition, we found out for all these years he had been saving with an IRA, had enough to retire and get about $12,000 a year on
How much is in the IRA, do you know?
I don't know. Over probably 30. Well, whatever would bring in $12,000 a year, that's a pretty fair amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand, like, the dress codes that the girls and boys have are really strict. The girls are never allowed to wear jeans. They are never allowed to wear slacks.
Which, of course, is not a bad idea.
They're never allowed to wear bobby socks. They must wear nylons. The boys must be dressed with a tie and proper, but this is all the time, Warren. And who wants to go to a picnic in a skirt? You know what I mean?
But of course, the point is there's strict moral conduct, right?
That's correct. They're very strict, yes.
And their undies, if I may, must be kind of back 100 years, with undershirts and full slips, and I understand the boys are not allowed to wear any brief
you know, it's amazing what you can get out of customers, and I don't ever mean to get it. You know, I don't speak, but
Well, they volunteer.
They volunteer, and they talk about it freely.
I forgot about that when you mentioned it.
Well, that's true, that's right.
Yeah. But they're mentioning it because they're very proud to say that this is the way it is.
Okay. Well, I know there's one thing that I strongly agree with the people that I've met over the years from the First Baptist Church, and that is just a patriotism that is unbelievable in this day and age. These are people who are proud to be Americans, right?
That's right. And they're very strong, very, very conservative people, very loyal to their country.
But what we are really saying here is that the man who's at the very pinnacle, in your opinion, and from the documentation, the research you have done, is a hypocrite in every sense of the word, just a hypocrite.
I think he's a fraud. I think he's a total fraud.
Your opinions, 754-4335. Be back in better form tomorrow morning. Warren Freiberg on WTAS. And well, let's give that 800 number where you can order the book.
That's 800-753-2665.
And the price again?
That's $19.95. That includes $3 shipping and handling.
And it is certainly a big book. It'll take you about a week to read it. And back to your calls after this. You have a craving for really great telephone calls down there. We're talking about the First Baptist Church in Hammond. Good morning.
Yes. I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Glover, if I could.
Yes, Councilor.
Yes, Mr. Glover, I've been going to First Baptist for 25 years, and what you say is complete rubbish.
All right, why?
First of all, he says that Jack Hyles associates himself higher with God. Well, Satan said the five I wills in Isaiah, and God had war with him, and God would not let Jack Hyles go on that way. That's the first problem I have with that. I do admit that maybe he has made errors in judgment with his money being generous, and that you make. I did read your book. Some of the stuff was humorous that you said, but if you were not there, it was taken out of context. And also, you mentioned like the money that Mr. Al Gomez and Mr. Waddell seen exchanging hands, but he says there wasn't no receipt. Now, they were influential members in what you would call the inner circle. Why did they not get up and say something?
Eventually they did. They got out.
Yeah, and that's the way the Bible teaches, to get out. If you don't believe the way someone does, you're supposed to leave quietly.
I did.
You did. And didn't he not praise you from the pulpit itself?
Oh, absolutely, several times.
So why wasn't that the end of it? Why, if you say that you believe the idea of just getting out, you don't agree with it, why did you publish a book?
Well, this thing goes more or much deeper than simply having somebody having... Understand, the fact that he may or may not have had an affair is peripheral. The fact even about the finances is peripheral. The problem I have with Jack Hyles is the idolatry. Israel was punished for more times for that than any single thing.
Right.
And it is wrong to put a man up on a pedestal, and you know he's on that pedestal, and so do I.
He's not on a pedestal. Me, I've been there 25 years. I've seen mistakes he's made, but don't we see mistakes that President Bush makes, but we still stand behind because he's our president? And also, idolatry is what you make in your mind. Money can be idolatry. Your book could be idolatry if someone takes that as gospel truth. And how you associate Jack Hyles as being Hitler and also so that's pretty low, and you know what you're doing. You say that you say people give subliminal messages. When he does it, you're doing the same thing.
Okay, let me respond to that. Is that being low? Is that being hitting below the belt?
First of all, that was not a subliminal message. That was a direct comparison.
You know what you're saying to people. Well,
absolutely.
You're comparing him to Adolf Hitler.
I compared him to Adolf Hitler because Adolf Hitler was a con artist. Jack Hyles is a con artist. Pardon?
He also killed 6 million people.
That's right, and this man, I think, is killing people spiritually. That's why I wrote the book.
Well, let me ask you, caller, also, are you at all concerned about the possible homicide of that 17-month-old baby that was implicated with the boy?
That's another thing I have a problem with. He keeps on bringing up Dave Hyles. Dave Hyles is, I agree, he should not be a pastor no more or anything like that. But he is a grown man.
What do you think?
Why do you associate him with his father? I know.
Because he covered those sins up. He knew about his son's sins.
You just don't go around the country telling everybody. Now, if your son Sam, if he was making things like that, would you tell everybody that you had an affair?
If my son Sam was a pastor and he was headed to take a church down in Texas and he had all those affairs, I would not let him do it. I'd stand up and expose him. Yes, absolutely. Would you?
Would I?
Yes,
I don't think I would. If it was my son,
and he broke my heart, I don't think that I would broadcast it to a nation, because it's nobody else's business.
You'd let those people down in Texas be destroyed like Jack Hyles did.
He didn't let them to be destroyed.
He didn't tell them about his son's sin.
You don't know. You show me one place in the Bible.
You didn't read the book.
You show me one, huh?
You didn't read the book.
Yes, I did read the book.
He knew about his son.
He had people come to him, but how do you know now he didn't repent before he went down? You don't.
Let me ask you, what is the degree of responsibility? Let's say you're a member of an organization and you sincerely feel that all of a sudden the man at the very top of the pinnacle is not anything as he represents. Is it your only responsibility to get out yourself?
Well, would you think somebody that's being chairman of the deacon board was pretty high up in NITSCO? Would they not, they would have the power, would they not question anything that he's done?
He doesn't question anything. He accepts it blindly, just like you're doing. He doesn't question it. Well, let me back that. You at least read the book. I give you credit for that, and I take that back. The other fellow has not read the book, will not read the book.
You say will not?
Will not.
You think that's the real problem? A lot of the people who are within the church, they simply are not going to look at the book at all?
That's right. The whole point of the book is to raise the questions so that you ask those questions of your pastor.
That's what it's his job to do? To raise questions?
That's what I did.
Well, if you're a defense lawyer and you know somebody's murdered, you guys raise other questions. That's what your job is to do. That's all you've done, and you're making a buck on it.
I missed your question, but...
No, I'm saying that's what... Your whole aspect, you're a lawyer. You're supposed to raise questions. You're not... You have a pretty high IQ. That's your whole motive in this, is just to raise questions. And I ask you...
To raise questions, but for what reason? Why did I want you to ask questions?
Well, like I said, I believe you have an axe to grind. Something that you're not telling.
I do have an axe to grind. You better believe it. I want you to hear what I have to say, and I want you to raise those questions to your pastor. Go ask him some of the questions.
Okay, so you want to get there. And again, whether you want to defend or castigate or you have a question, 756-7896, Warren Freiberg of the Callan Show. Now, if David, or for that matter, for all I know, if Jack Hyles has repented of some of the things that he has done, should he cast the first stone?
Well, in the first place, there's been no evidence of any repentance. The secretary, for example, that he was accused of having an affair with, still has her office next to him. He still has the appearance. There's still an inner door. Whether or not it's boarded up or not, nobody knows. He says there's no access, which is not the same thing as saying that there's no door. And any number of things suggest that there has been no repentance. There's simply been a defense, a golly gee whiz, it's not true, stance on Jack Hyles' part. Even if there was repentance, though, the things that he's done, while I would stand, and I think most of the membership would stand ready to forgive, I still think he's forfeited his chance at leadership as a preacher, a minister of the gospel. I think he should step down. There's too many things that he's done. I think he's placed the church's tax-exempt status in severe jeopardy, for example. I think that to permit him to continue on as a pastor, as a preacher of the gospel, is to condone what he did. All we have to do now is just stand up and golly gee whiz, I'm sorry, and go on. And who's to know the real heart? I think there has to be some demonstrable
proof of your repentance.
Yes.
So are you saying that some of the people who are standing by him, in a sense, are also guilty?
Well, I think very much so. I think they stand fully aware of who and what their pastor is. I think that some of them stand with full knowledge. Some of them stand with limited knowledge. Some of them stand, I think, with a whole lot of questions, which they don't want to know the answers to.
925, you're on the Glover. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. What I want to make a comment to is I can only speak for myself as going through the system there at First Baptist Church. I grew up there. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old when we started going to the church there. My parents got involved in it, and I've actually looked at, I can speak from experience, what I've been through. It's been very upsetting to me. And
okay, what's been very upsetting?
Well, I attended high school. I attended college. I didn't graduate. I was like 18 hours short from graduating. But I was promised so many things. You know, they would give me a quality education. I didn't get my quality education. As one of the other callers had mentioned, that it wasn't an accredited school. I knew that when I went there. But what we were told is that if you went to this school and you didn't succeed, more or less you'd be a failure in God's eyes. I was always taught and raised that whatever Jack Hyles said was true. We looked to Jack Hyles as God, really did. I know I did.
So you were brainwashed from a very young age?
Very young age. And it took me a long time to really figure out what was going on down there. I think there are a lot of sincere people that really believe that. I think a lot of people are just confused. They can't sort everything out because the guy is such a dynamic speaker. He can literally get you to believe anything.
That's right.
I've been to his office many times. I've talked to him for counseling, and he promised me so many things. It just didn't turn out as far as the education goes. Dave, one of my best friends, I grew up with Dave. I used to go to his house. And matter of fact, even the times I went to his house, we'd play softball and stuff. We'd go to Harrison Park and do things together over there. In the youth group there, they had a softball league. And I remember being at Dave's house in the garage, and he'd have the headphones on, along with a guy by the name of Jim Craw. And they were listening to rock music. And as soon as his dad came out, Jack, they'd take the headphones off and throw them in a drawer in the closet. Not in the closet, but in a dresser there. Because he knew his dad was coming out. I mean, they were doing things like this all the time. I've traveled with Dave to soccer games, and I remember sitting in the front seat of the car, and he had a girl with him.
Dave, the womanizer that he's being portrayed?
Yes. No doubt about it. I remember going to soccer games with Dave.
Let me ask one thing before I want to go back to, should the sins of the son be brought upon the father? Is Jack Hyles as bad as we've portrayed his son?
No, I don't think so. I think that the real issue here is the fact that he did not address the sins of his son. Understand, his son was on staff. His son was leading in the various youth groups. He was a youth pastor. His son was going to pastor a church which Jack Hyles had built from nothing in Texas. And Jack Hyles did not warn the people, did not stop his son. And in essence, what he did was he put the house of Hyles ahead of the house of God and ahead of the people of God. And he permitted his son to wreak havoc in his church. And that's wrong. And for that, I condemn it.
Okay, son, anything you want to say?
A lot of times, like I mentioned too, when I was going to the college, there were many times, like after a Sunday night service, when Brother Hyles would really preach a real hard sermon, we'd come to the college. Some of my friends that I went there with that attended there for certain classes, they wouldn't even talk about classes the next day. We had a certain teacher out there that would just sit there and teach about what Hyles taught about Sunday night instead of giving us our education that we were paying good money to go there for. I remember being in the line standing there to have a hair check. I remember several times being in hair checks, and there's one incident that really bothered me. A student walked up to me and he says, "Brother, your hair is too long." And I said, "Well, I just got my hair cut." I said, "I've got it trimmed the way I thought it was supposed to be." And he goes, "Well," he says, "you want to look like Brother Hyles, don't you?" And I just exploded. I just couldn't hold it back. I said, "Hey, stick, Brother Hyles. I didn't come to the school to look like Brother Hyles. I came here to get an education." I said, "Obviously, I'm not getting an education. Everybody's worried about what you look like." You know what I'm saying?
Let me ask you this now. Are you also agreeing that degree is worthless?
So it's totally worthless unless you're in that system. It is okay. I mean, if you get out of the system or go anywhere else, and that's what it's designed to be. If you stay within that system, you're okay. But if you get out of that system, the fundamentalism, the Christian school system, it's worthless. Totally worthless to you. And it's really messed me up. It's taken me years to really recover and just to get. I've got a good job now, but it's really messed me up. I went to Brother Hyles and talked to him and told him about the problems that were going out to school. And he more or less told me, he said, "If you want to talk about those things," he says, "there's the door, get out of here. I don't want to hear it." He didn't want to listen to me.
So you're completely disillusioned.
Very. Okay.
It is 9:30, and that opens the line if you want to get through at 754-4335. We are talking about the book Fundamental Seduction, the Jack Hyles case. It is authored by Voyle Glover, who has devoted how many years now, Voyle, to this? To your research and the whole
research. About a year. It took me 8 months to write the book, but I was researching probably about a year.
Now, outside of the possible homicide of the 17-month-old baby that you tried to David Hyles, is there anything that is absolutely illegal?
In what way?
Well, what I'm saying is, if you know something that's illegal, obviously your responsibility as an attorney, as an officer of the court, as well as a citizen, you have to give that information over to proper law authorities.
That's correct. Other than, the things that have been raised in the book with respect to Dave and the child, I'm not currently looking at anything in particular. I'm not, if you're asking if I have some body of evidence or something.
Yeah, I remember. Should law officials really look closely at Jack Hyles and his son right now?
Oh, I think so, yes. This is really more of a federal question with respect to Hyles and the money. I think the IRS is the proper vehicle. I'm not sure that the state really has the jurisdiction to look into the things that need to be looked into at this point. At some point, they probably will. The IRS would be the most logical entity to look into the financial aspect of it.
Well, Glover, we'll get back to the telephone calls right after this. Do that, tell us interiors. Let's go to you. Good morning. Hello.
Yes.
Okay, so you're on here.
Okay. Just wanted to say that I am in total agreement with what Mr. Glover is doing. I was a student at Hyles-Anderson College, and the place is definitely a sham. Going back to the issue with Jack Hyles' son, David, there was a lot of questions of if Jack Hyles knew of David's immorality before he left for Texas. Yes, he did. And I have two people that are still at the church that would verify that he did know. I had the opportunity to talk with Jack Hyles myself. Jack Hyles told me personally that not only did he not know of Dave's immorality, but that David was never even accused of immorality.
How long ago did he tell you that?
Approximately last summer.
Mm-hmm. So he just flat out lied to you then?
Yes, sir, I know that.
What disillusioned you about the school? You said you had gone to the school.
What disillusioned me?
Yeah.
This whole issue when it basically came out. I was close to several teachers up there, and realized that about 18 to 20 faculty and staff members have left from that college. And over this very issue, they have finally opened their eyes, such as I did. And it's a thing where you don't know. It's very devastating. I personally wondered what my wife would think when I told her about the whole situation. She was a graduate from there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very emotionally disturbing thing to realize because you...
All right, let me explain with you for 1 second. Why are some people continuously blind to, when you say your wife was a graduate, she was going to be disturbed by your telling us, why? Why are some people so continuously blind that they will not see?
First of all, they've got such a high expectation of what Jack Hyles is. It's just like you worship him. Not in a sense as you would worship God, but you think that the man could do no wrong, and realize that he tells you that throughout his preaching, examples that he gives you of stories that he's done, how he's helped people. You've got such a high image of him. You put him so far up on a pedestal, and I think a lot of people, the reason that they do not look into the facts is if it were found out to be true and they realize that Jack Hyles is not what he says he is, it would destroy them emotionally. And it's a pride thing also.
It sounds like you're saying looking inward would really harm the psyche of the person who was questioning.
Exactly.
Going right along with what you said, I got a letter from a fellow, and here's what he said that went right along with what you said. He said, my wife and I were students at the college the first year in 72. It took 15 years to deprogram my thinking and ministry. The Hyles philosophy just about ruined us and our churches. His brainwashing was so hard to shed. We are free today, and your book was just the clincher we needed. I think that what you say is so important for people to understand is the imprinting that went on with you, the psychological imprinting that went on with us.
I would, when I started to realize, I heard a testimony by Dave's ex-wife, Paula Hyles.
Paula, yeah.
And when I heard that, I just realized, hey, you know, I'd heard things, but that was the clincher for me. And I would have headaches for days, just, you know, the emotional turmoil just going on inside.
You didn't want to admit that this man was a fraud. This man you had held up so high. Yeah, I know the feeling. I went through it.
All right, sir. Thank you. 754-4335 is open. The temperature is 32 degrees. It's going to be sunny later on today. The winds from northeast at 8 miles an hour.
Dr. Michael McNally says, look...
Well, some of our listeners are probably not aware of that. I want you to explain that at least 20% of the faculty of the college have resigned here recently.
Yeah, it may have been even higher than that. Over the summer, a large number of the faculty left. Many of them, you have to understand, we were getting data in, or they were getting in data in various forms. And one of the most effective things for the faculty out there was a tape by Paula Hyles. She has a chapter in my book. I flew out to California and interviewed her for the book. But she had been taped, unaware. She did not know she was being taped.
And she is?
Ex-wife of David Hyles.
Right, okay.
And they broke up after the pornographic pictures were discovered. And this pastor asked her a number of questions, and she really basically revealed the whole thing, especially the fact that Jack Hyles knew about his son's immorality prior to going to Texas. She went in and told him about things. Others went in and told him about things. And she revealed all this, and this had a terrific impact on the faculty.
Well, so much so that obviously more than 20% resigned.
Many of them. It's probably greater than 20%, yes.
Okay, make your calls after this. And thank you. Let me 18 before 10. You're on the air with Voyle Glover. Good morning.
Hello. I graduated from Hammond Baptist, and just some input. I counseled with Hyles about where to attend college after I'd gone against his decision and went to another religious school in a different area, and he just told me to, without praying or consulting anyone else, to transfer to his school, and he didn't say not to pray about it, but even if I did, that I don't have the knowledge to, see what's best for myself.
So the direct recommendation was simply go to my college, right?
Exactly. And also...
Did you go?
No, I did not. Because thanks to my mother, she kind of smacked me upside the head and said that's something between you and God, and no man can decide for you, And I began seeing that, he was kind of replacing God in that church. And even after I discontinued attending his services, I kept on attending his son-in-law's Sunday school class, and where he said that even if he knew of Dave Hyles' sin, that he was just doing what Jesus did, where he told the name slips my mind. I'm sure Mr. Glover remembers in the Bible where Jesus said that, go forth and sin no more,
Yeah.
Like it had nothing to do with him going to another church and ruining all those people's lives,
It was a neat way of saying, let's just cover it up and not talk about it.
Yeah, basically that. And they really insult those people intelligent. It's a collegiate age Sunday school class. And there was a teacher in there one day saying, you want to go to your secular schools and, learn that we came from monkeys in there, Mr. Glover graduated from Valparaiso University. I'm sure he learned a little more than, we came from monkeys. Like that school is the only school to where you're going to be a success in life.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Good call. Quarter before 10. Let's go to you. Good morning.
Good morning. I am a member of the church, and I have been for many years, and I want to say that most of what Voyle says is absolutely true. He's telling it from his perspective, which is the only way he can tell it. There's some things he probably gets wrong, but no more than you or I would if we tried to tell the story. And I want to say something to the lady who called a while back, who was saying that the high moral and dress standards are, she may not have said this word, but she intimated that it was ridiculous to expect women to dress modestly, and I want to say that it isn't. You can certainly wear a dress to a picnic, and we might be better off in this country if we would pay a little more attention to modesty.
That's right.
But the truth is, all we want for our children as we go to this church is for the philosophies that are espoused, the biblical teachings, to be lived by the man who stands there and claims to be the one who possesses the truth and who understands it. We want him to live it too. And the man who called about 20 minutes ago and said Voile's book is rubbish, you know, that guy knows the truth. He knows it. But he won't face it any more than the others who won't, because if they do, they'll have to face some things about themselves that they're not willing to face.
Right.
And I'm not saying
Let me ask you a question. You said that you are currently a member.
Yes.
All right. Do you go there on a Sunday? Do you watch Pastor Hyles?
Yes, I do.
And what? Say, I know what you really are, but I'm listening anyway?
Please don't ask me that. I can't explain to you on the radio what my situation is, but I'm not a crackpot.
You're saying the man is a hypocrite, right?
I don't know if I would use that word. I think he is, I guess. It's a lot deeper than that.
You believe what Voyle has written in the book, though, right?
Most of it, yes.
And but you see, what I'm trying to say is there are probably a lot of people who believe what Voyle is writing, but they go there on a Sunday anyway and want to ignore it.
Well, some want to ignore it, and some have no choice. I can't explain why.
Some are in the system, Warren. Let me explain this. Many of us, when we left, when my wife and I left my family, it was like getting a divorce, okay? Emotionally,
that's dramatic,
emotionally you have these ties. You've been there 20-some years. You don't just turn it off. You don't just suddenly walk out. And for many people, it's like that, but it's also, you've invested your whole life there. Many people are there, and this is all they've had. This is all they've known. They've invested everything in it. And to walk away from it is pretty tough to do, and in some cases, economically, they can't afford to walk away from it.
Not only that, but strange as this may sound, for all the problems that First Baptist has preached and taught the truth over the years. We've gotten in some trouble here lately because of the fact that our pastor is not what he claims to be, but the Bible is true, and he has, most of the time, taught the Bible. The problem comes in when he injects his own philosophies, and I think he's an emotionally disturbed person, and that causes problems too. And but the truth is still there, and you know there aren't many churches who preach the truth as he has, and that's what breaks our hearts. That what we thought we believed and what we thought we were told is not. It was an illusion, and believe me, Warren, it isn't easy to walk away. It isn't always something you can do.
I can empathize with what you're saying.
You can't make a snap decision. We have children, we have lives, and so it isn't that we're crazy.
Have you read Voile's book?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, you read it. You heard what he said. Sunday, you'll go back though to the church.
Yes. And please don't think that discredits what I say. It doesn't. And the truth is, and this will probably amaze you, but Voyle isn't telling a third of what he knows to be true. He isn't telling a third of what all of us know to be true. It's so amazing and fantastic that people would probably laugh him out of the studio. But it happens to be true. And First Baptist is a place that has to be experienced. It's not a story that can be understood just by the telling to people. And anyone who's been there knows what I'm saying is true.
That's right. All right, so, right. Do you think the government, by the way, should the investigate and should the IRS come down?
I don't know. If what Voyle says is true about the money, I think they should, and I think they probably are.
Okay. I find it interesting, Voyle, what you're saying, what she is saying, basically, that there are other things that really perhaps either cannot be told or were not told in the book. These involve more sex scandals, or?
Well, there's a lot of things like that. Things having to do with mind control, things having to do with... Well, an example, and this is a crude example. I'm reluctant to even mention it, but this gives you an idea of the kind of mindset and the kind of thing that's going on. A lady caller told me of a time they had a women's missionary circle, something or other, and Hyles had these women for some reason. I believe it had to do with pseudo punishment of some kind, a joking way. Had them approach him on his knees, and he was holding in his hand a wiener, made them eat off the end of it. And I believe the woman, and there are hundreds of stories like this. I mean, she says she turned her back on him and just refused to participate or anything about it, and it was all done jokingly and so on and so forth. But there are many, many other stories out there like that. There are other stories that are, in my opinion,
they have such a tremendous grasp on the mind of the individual that these people will still go back there again and again.
Well, you keep hoping for change.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to a woman who's obviously very sincere, and she realizes what you are saying is true, but there's no apparent reason why she's going back. I can't believe that he blackmails 5,000 people every Sunday.
Well, look at it like this. For 2 years, we wrestled with leaving. We didn't want to leave. We kept thinking something would change. We kept thinking any day he'll either resign or he'll change a heart or something will change. You don't want to believe that it's all over. You don't want to believe you put 20 years into something, 20 years of friendships, 20 years of your life into something, and now you've got to walk away from it? That's hard to do.
Well, he's sitting back counting the money.
Yeah.
All right, back to your calls after this.
Hi.
So that case by Voyle Glory. Voyle, let's again give them the telephone number. It's an 800 number you can call to get the book.
It's 800-753-2665.
That's a toll-free number. The cost of the book again
is $16.95, $3 shipping and handling.
8 before 10. Let's go back to you. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm a Hammond Baptist high school graduate.
Yes.
And I went to school with all the kids, too, and our education is not what it's meant to be. Not only that, hundreds of kids have grown up with hypocrisy, and when they leave there, they don't want to have anything to do with church at all. They don't want to have anything to do with the system. And very few go to church after that. And the schools, if anything, the schools need to be closed down because there are kids that come up through there, they try. Guys, after they leave, they cannot get decent jobs. They cannot go to secular colleges. And it's a farce.
Would you say the system has damaged their faith, your peers?
Definitely. We've grown up with hypocrisy. In that school, there was everything that was in the public schools. They had the smoking, they had the drinking, they had the secular activities, and so there was no difference. It was all done under the guise of Christianity.
And was there a cover-up to your knowledge of the sins of some of the higher-ups? Did you ever see that?
I was about 10 years younger than the Dave Hyles clan there, and we still knew stuff going on. We still knew of all that stories. And parents, I don't know if they think their kids don't know, but kids do know. They cannot be fooled by that. And they see through it. They see through hypocrisy very well at a young age.
Well spoken. Do you go to the church now?
No, I've left about 4 years ago. And the lady who was just on the phone, you don't know what it's like until you go through that experience. You're almost like a computer that needs to be deprogrammed. You're programmed all those years, and when you leave, you almost need wires pulled. You need some type of refocus ministry to where you can get a whole other light on life. Because
are you still a Christian in your mind, ma'am?
I'm sorry?
Are you still a Christian in your mind?
Whether that was wrong or right?
No, are you still a Christian?
Oh, yes, I am. My family, we were a strong family unit. It took us 3 years to leave there. It is a cult in every way. It's a strong word, a cult, but if you know what cults are like, it is. And it took us a long time to get out, even after we saw the truth. My family is a strong family, and we talk things over. Families need to talk things over when they leave there. That's a healing process that people need to go through. We were there 20 years. And so when we left, yes, it was hard, but I am a Christian. I know my faith. I had a renewal of my salvation after I left.
You're obviously talking to a lot of people right now who are members of the church. That's, I think, apparent by the number of calls we're getting this morning, people who are saying, I belong to the church. What did you say to those people who right now are going there, and perhaps they suspect or they know that there are things that are wrong? Should they just get out? How do you get out?
Yes, they need to leave there, no matter how hard it is. They need to look at the Bible. They need to take Jack Hyles completely out of their mind, and look to the Lord, get in the Word, get in the Bible, and really compare what is going on with what the Bible says. He does use Scripture in his preaching, but it is all completely twisted, and there's no basis or foundation there for people.
Okay, interesting call. 5 before 10. To you. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a former member of First Baptist. I was down there over 30 years, and the thing that bothers me is that Jack Hyles has ruined so many families. So many young people have had their lives absolutely ruined.
That's right.
He could apologize for him now till the rapture, and he'd never get everybody apologized to that he has wronged in this way. And it's a very emotional. I felt so sorry for that last woman who called. I have a lot of good friends that still go down there. They're not stupid people. And I'm sure that most of them know what's going on, and for whatever reason, they're still there. But I think a lot of people, financially, emotionally, and other ways, just feel they owe Jack Hyles something.
Did you put Jack Hyles on a pedestal when you were there?
I don't think I was quite. I've never been a hero worshiper of any kind, and I don't think probably I did as much as...
Did you see others who did it?
Yes, yes.
Did you read the book?
Yes, I sure did.
Did you agree with it?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Dave Hyles cover-up is what bothers me. It really... You can't say that he's responsible for what his friend did, but it's a cover-up. He wouldn't talk. People would come into his office, and he didn't want to discuss it. And what he should have done at the beginning is get up in the pulpit and air the whole thing, and it would have been done with.
I remember Lincoln said he can fool some of the people some of the time, and in fact, all the people some of the time, but you can't fool everybody all the time. Do you think that's getting the case in terms of Jack Hyles, that at least some of the people are saying you can't fool me anymore?
Yes, I think so. And what bothers me, too, is that a lot of the people who he puts in authority in other areas are not the best people. And the divorce is rampant down there, and some of it is just unnecessary and uncalled for.
Would you agree that he puts people in his positions, these leadership positions, who are yes men?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they owe their financial success to him, and some of the people are now middle-aged, and it's not right, but that's what they think. What am I going to do now? Where am I going to get a job? I can't live in the manner I've become accustomed to.
Okay.
And so they say.
Okay, I imagine all that. All right, we have time for one or two more. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Warren.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to say to your guest there, I think he's doing a good thing, and the one caller that called in and said he should have just left and kept his mouth closed, doesn't understand it. The Bible says that the pastor of his church, his blood or soul, however you want to look at it, would be required of this man's hands if he didn't open his mouth.
That's right.
And I think that some of the people that don't realize that just because they're going to the church and the pastor might be wrong, I don't think that there's a heck of a lot good that comes out of the church because of that church. And it's not just the Baptist, it's a lot of the other churches. I've said to Warren a few times that I believe that this is just a sign of the time. There's a great falling away. And I think Jim Baker and Jimmy Swaggart is just God's way of showing you no matter how big you get, that you can always fall if you get too proud.